Hi, thanks for being with me today. We're in a new era. The show is now sponsored by the Get Real Alliance, which offers a positive solution to climate change and is going to discuss other issues that we're going to be discussing on the show over time too. But right now, I am so concerned about the very negative and counterproductive proposals that are being made about climate change that I want to advocate that you go to the website, keep an eye on it. It's just under development. We're brand new on the web, and my book is about finished. We're working on the final chapters and getting ready to get it off to the publisher. So exciting things happening. But right now I can say just be on the lookout for an opportunity to get a really disruptive, positive view of how we can really save the world, not from the climate crisis solely, but from a far greater crisis, which is the loss of soil and degradation of the soil that really threatens mankind in a much more substantial way than mere climate change does. You know, a slightly warmer temperature means nothing if your farmland has turned to desert, if the land around your village has become infertile and has been destroyed by destructive agricultural practices. We need to really focus on a positive solution to so many problems, which is to restore the earth to health and to treat it with respect. So in the book, I talk a lot about this. It's impossible in a 25, 30-minute show to deal with much detail about the great news that positive interaction can happen, but changes in agriculture and restoration of marine wetlands and use of biochar, which is just an incredibly great soil amendment and permanent carbon sequestration agent, can really make a big difference, along with the widespread global use of basalt rock dust to restore the soil to health and drastically expand the growth and carbon sequestration of forests and other plants. You know, over half the carbon that man emits gets soaked up by the environment already, even though we've created a sick environment, even though we have hundreds of millions of acres of bare soil that is being starved for carbon because man doesn't let plants grow on the soil except during the active growing season. We can do so much to sequester carbon and make the world carbon negative while we still use oil and gas. All this focus on tremendous disruptions of modern society by trying to shift our mode of operation entirely away from liquid fuels to electricity, and to go from reliable sources of electricity that give us power at a flip of a switch any time of day to an incredibly variable source of power that may not give us power when we want it, that may result in blackouts occurring as a regular part of life, like it does in some third world countries that have unreliable power systems. Don't take it for granted that America can't go to a dark place with bad policies. Bad policies can destroy the prosperity and wonderful life we have here in America if we shift away and go to a situation where we're depending on power sources that, like solar, that may not provide power for days. In the case of cloudy weather, we could really see a drastic change in our life as the always available power sources become a small part of the electrical grid. Right now, the intermittent sources of wind and solar are such small parts of the electric grid that the bulk of the power gets delivered on a cloudy day, so you don't notice when the solar farms aren't producing power. We're going to talk a lot about a lot of issues in the coming weeks and months, and I hope that you will tune into the show regularly. I hope you'll go to our YouTube channel, look up Insights with David on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, please. We have a lot of people glancing at the channel, but we need more subscribers because YouTube ranks channels based on subscribers. And without you signing up as a subscriber on YouTube, we don't build up enough numbers. My old website designer was a wonderful, sweet guy, but he did a lousy job of promoting my websites and information. I now have an exciting new team working, and we're hoping to really get the word out about the positive good news that is about Insights with David Munson, is all about the really good news that if we obey the second commandment and love our neighbor as ourselves in a broad sense, we're going to have that peace that passes understanding that comes from letting the Holy Spirit into our lives, saying, God, I'm going to obey your two commandments. I'm going to love you, and I'm going to love my neighbor as myself. And my neighbor includes people in other countries. It includes future generations. So we're going to change the way we live our lives to create a loving and nurturing environment for all man. And all the problems of the world go away if we obey the second commandment. Our environmental problems go away if we think holistically about being good stewards of the earth, which is one of God's commandments in Genesis, to be stewards of the earth instead of plunderers of the earth. So not following God's rules leads us into a path of destruction and despair. And that's the devil's work, but we're going to talk a lot more about environmental causes and secular issues, but we always come back to the core beliefs because our core beliefs affect what we think and do. If you don't have a core belief that you need to make loving your neighbor as your central tenet of how you conduct yourself, how you drive, how you buy, how you live, how you treat other people, all that is affected by your core belief. So you can have the mantra of be all you can be and get all you can for yourself, achieve everything you can, take advantage of other people and plunder. That's the devil's mantra. That's the lure of the world. Greed, lust, pride, racism, being derogatory towards other people, all those things take us away from God into a dark place of, instead of eternal life, a life without a future. So if you want to have a future for the world, for yourself after you die, we need to follow God's word and really do what is good. Now, the Get Real Alliance is a lot less Christian organization because we want to reach people of all spiritual beliefs, including people that don't believe in God, because the issues that we're talking about, that we're getting real about, are so critical to the secular current world as well as for the future and being good stewards of the world, that we need to reach everybody we can and spread the good news that a positive solution to climate change is possible if we devote ourselves to restoring the earth to health, to putting down massive quantities of basalt rock dust globally on forests, agricultural land. Every place where a plant can grow needs to have healthy, mineral-rich soil to stimulate more plant growth. As all of you know, there is soil out there that's so sterile and so devoid of nutrients that plants won't grow. Much of it is called subsoil because it doesn't have any organic matter and has had, in many cases, very depleted minerals. I'm sorry. But we can make a real difference. It's proven. You can go to remineralize.org and get a lot more information about it. That's a great organization that the Get Real Alliance promotes heavily and is a big supporter of. So the world has got solutions. Unfortunately, most climate activists focus on things to take away from man's prosperity instead of let's make the world a better place where there's more food, where there's more trees, where forests are growing and thriving instead of dying. Let's convert dead trees into biochar, which lasts eternally as carbon in the soil to store nutrients. It's a tragedy the way man lives our lives right now. There is so much waste. There are so many resources washing into the sea or going into the air or being buried in landfills that we are living a very unsustainable life. So the Get Real Alliance is all about making a difference, and you can help by going online. Our donate button isn't active yet. Our membership button isn't activated yet. There is so much yet to be done, but keep going to getrealalliance.org, checking it out, and watch the progress as we move from being a bare minimum website to being a full site with lots of content, lots of videos, lots of information to fully convince you that there is a positive solution to the climate crisis and to other issues. We're not just going to focus on climate, but right now you have to start on the first issue before you jump to the next. But keep tuning in because we're going to talk about a lot of exciting stuff, exciting ways we can change our society to make it a kinder, gentler, and happier society for everybody that enjoys life as an American. Because that's what we need to really focus on, is not only making America great, but spreading the good news that all men are created equal under God. They're not created as sub-citizens. There's not a stratification of men where these men are good and these men are universally bad. Bad and good exists in every group, in every race, in every country. And the power of good is strong, but the power of evil is stronger. God created evil so that good can exist. But we need to really focus on trying to trade our lives for eternal salvation by accepting the Holy Spirit and loving our neighbors as ourselves in joyful celebration of the gifts that God has given us and the things that we can do. So a lot going on. Please keep watching the show. Spread the good news. Join our YouTube channel. Get on getrealalliance.org and watch it for growth. Watch it for content. Sign up for the newsletter when it's available. I hate to tell you to do things in the future that you can't do right now because people love to jump on and get something done right away. But we're just getting started. The organization just started last month. We've got a book coming out. The book is in final stages of editing. Very excited about it. It's going to be available as an ebook, an audio book, a print book, and it is full of exciting, positive stories and exciting innovations that we're going to also be talking about on the show over time. So I'm excited. I'm loving the work. I'm loving spreading the good news. And I hope that you're inspired that there is a positive path for humanity to have a better life that involves Christian principles taken in a very sincere way, not in a superficial way, not in a judgmental way, not in a way that diminishes other people, but loves all people and uplifts people and fights these dark forces that exist in society that are trying to take America down a bad path that will lead to a real loss of quality of life. We need reliable power. We need to be sensible. We need to eventually get ourselves on renewable and sustainable power sources because oil and gas are finite, but there's a lot of it, and we've got a lot of time. We can solve this climate crisis by restoring the earth to health in a very affordable way. So it doesn't come free though, friends. We're going to have to pay people and entities to change the way the world does business, to turn the world into a carbon sink instead of being a carbon emitter. But the cost is low. I estimate a carbon sequestration program can be done globally for a cost of about 30 cents a gallon of gasoline, which is very affordable. Gasoline's gone down far more than that just during this coronavirus. So we can afford to pay a few cents more to turn our cars from being carbon emitters to being carbon negative by paying people to sequester more carbon than the car emits and the power plant emits. So these things are all talked about in the book at length, but there's exciting things that can be done, and just know that the positive solution is doable and affordable and needs to be done, not because of CO2 solely, because I'm a little bit skeptical that CO2 is nearly as malevolent as people make it out to be, and that rising levels are so horrible. But we can't afford to take the chance that they could end up being very disruptive and destroy the world as we know it if we let them rise. So we need to control CO2 levels. We need to lower CO2 levels slightly while we restore the soil to health, because we need more carbon in the soil. We need to take the soil, the carbon out of the air, and we need to take all the carbon emissions of oil and gas and put them in the soil, put them in marine wetlands, put them to work making the world a better place. And that's the message that doesn't get out from the current climate activists that focus almost exclusively on trying to cut emissions and try to make the world soak up all the carbon that it desperately wants. Life wants carbon because carbon is the base of life. Soil life is currently starving for carbon because there's not enough carbon in the soil due to man's practices that cause carbon to be emitted and burned up. Putting on large amounts of nitrogen fertilizer in excess of what the plant needs feeds decomposing soil bacteria that literally eat the soil carbon up and turn it to carbon dioxide, releasing it back into the air. There is so much, friends, that we can talk about, and we've covered a lot of ground today, but the real news is there's a ton more information out there on my TV shows that are on the YouTube channel and insightswithdavid.com, as well as there's going to be a huge amount of information on the GetRealAlliance.org. So friends, make a favorite out of that, go to it, join it, sign up for our newsletter when that's available. Hopefully that'll be available about the time this show airs. As I'm taping this show, the website is minimal. It has some good content, a good introductory page, a little bit of description, but there is so much more to be done to make a great website that can inform and entertain you and tell you that we have a positive solution. So tune in more, tune into the show again. We're going to talk about a lot. We're going to share chapters of the book. There's going to be a lot of exciting stuff. I am very excited about our new direction. Our old path of focusing on loving your neighbor and talking about local charities that are doing good works was a powerful, good message. And I may still have on some great charity mentors and leaders that are doing great things. But this global issue is bigger and more devastating to humanity. We could really end up perishing as a race if we don't start taking care of the soil, fighting the deserts, and remineralizing and revitalizing the soil. So I know that sounds like a dire, negative prophecy, but the truth is the trends are in place. It doesn't take a vision from God to see that if you're losing 1 million acres a year to desert, if you're losing 10 million tons of soil a day, that's a process that will eventually come to haunt you. It won't happen in the next couple of years. We've got enough soil. Estimates are that the soil will largely be gone in much of the world in 50 or 60 years if we continue the trends we're on. So that's not that long, friends. If you've got young children like I do, that's in their lifetime. That's when they're my age. They're going to be living in a world without enough food, where people are fighting each other. Who knows what kind of evils may spring back up. We may go back to a time of cannibalism in a time of real food shortage, because if you don't have a strong Judeo-Christian love of your neighbor as your core belief and a sanctity of life, it quickly devolves into where people that are undesirable or getting old or whatever might turn into food for a hungry country, a hungry world. This is dire stuff, friends. Apocalyptic, dystopian future could be ours if we don't get real. Getting real means thinking holistically about everything that's going on and how we can be sustainable, how we can continue to prosper without depleting so many geologic resources that we end up subjecting future generations to an absolutely horrible life while we're living a very wasteful one today. So friends, we all need to be more conscientious. We need to just open our hearts and say, God, use me as your tool. Guide me in clear paths. We need to pray the Lord's Prayer, and the most important line in the Lord's Prayer is giving God credit as the eternal creator and sustainer of life on earth. But the second important line is later in the prayer, which is deliver us from evil. Evil is a real force in the world, and we all need to pray to be delivered from it and kept on the positive path of being loving and caring people. There would be no racism, there'd be no hatred, there'd be no crime if we all embraced God and said, yes, I'm going to love my neighbor as myself. I'm going to treat people with respect. I'm never going to do things to harm people. That would be a wonderful world. But unfortunately, evil is very strong in the world, and we need to be delivered from it. So if we're delivered from evil, we think of the world as a whole. We think of the world in a non-selfish way and realize that we need to change to make our world sustainable, to create a good world that'll be there for future generations. And that's what the Get Real Alliance is all about. So go to GetRealAlliance.org, follow us, watch us grow. We're going to be an exciting website full of information, full of blogs and newsletters and papers. We're very excited. We've got a great team of people working to promote this, and we are not a nonprofit deductible entity. We are an active advocacy group, which means we can do political ads, we can lobby for change, but that means that a donation to the GetRealAlliance.org is not tax deductible, but it is a charitable donation that doesn't get taxed. So our money, any money you give us, can be used to do the vital work of restoring the earth to health and promoting other issues that we're going to talk about over time. I'm really sorry that I'm having this coughing spell. I don't have COVID, but I've had this persistent cough off and on occasionally for a long time. And I guess I'm a little excited about the prospects that go on and that Get Real Alliance has going. Maybe that's causing this cough to well up. Maybe that's the devil trying to keep me from sharing the good news effectively, that we can do something about climate, we can do something about CO2 by restoring the earth to health with an affordable program that's very affordable. A 10 or 15% increase in energy costs can funnel enough money into remineralizing, making biochar, making change in agriculture, teaching people ways to manage cattle so that they turn into a carbon negative creature that actually enriches the environment, as opposed to killing the grass off and causing the world to be less fertile and less lush with poor grazing. So there's a lot going on. I've talked about a lot. You can watch this show on my YouTube channel, Insights with David. You can watch it on the UA Network on demand. You can watch it on insightswithdavid.com, and soon there will be links to it on the GetRealAlliance.org. So there is a lot we can do, and I hope that you've stayed tuned into this show and are excited about the positive good news that if we really love our neighbors ourselves, meaning also to be good stewards of the earth for everyone and to take care of things, this world can be a whole lot better. These protests, all this negativity goes away if we really follow our hearts and do God's work in the world. So the solution is God. The enemy is the devil and evil and going against Judeo-Christian. You don't have to be a believer in God to say that love your neighbors yourself is a damn good commandment, a really great commandment that needs to be obeyed. Even if you're a skeptic and says, well, God probably doesn't exist. We're going to talk about that a lot in the future too, so tune into future shows. But God does exist, and there is no question that His commandment to love your neighbors yourself solves the world's problems. We live in a world without violence, without takeovers, treating others with respect, living sustainably, controlling our urges. There's so much good news out there. But friends, we can do great things. Support UAN with your viewership. Share the channel with your friends. If you're watching this on Roku or on the internet or watching it on my YouTube channel, share that with your friends. Let's build viewership for the positive good news that we're proclaiming, that we're saved by grace, but the cost of that is that we give up our souls, we give our lives to helping others, to loving God, and spreading the good news that we can make the world a really better place. So stay tuned, share, go to GetRealAlliance.org, and let's make a real difference in the world. The only way we're going to fight the forces of evil is if you get involved and help us spread the good news. Have a great day, and I hope that the Lord will bless you with that peace that passes understanding.